Well, welcome again, everyone. This is Dawn. Um, Thank you again, Melvin, for that beautiful opportunity for practice, both some movement and stationary practice with the elements is very settling to my system. I'm not asleep. And my cat might be joining us. So well, I'll introduce her if she wants to be on camera. We thought we'd riff a little bit off of what might be up for the Sangha tonight. We're recognizing that we're in a time of year that can be tender for Alphabet folks. It's a bit of holiday season. Hanukkah is just ending. If you're out and about, all the Christmas songs might be blaring at you. Other holidays may be here for you. And, it's a darker time of the year. The days are shorter. There's sort of many things that are happening. So we're just kind of curious. Maybe we can put in the chat what are there Dharma concepts, practices, teachings that have been getting you through this season? We're just curious to hear from you. Anything that's feeling really supportive right now. I see some folks putting some practices like metta practice and Tonglen in the chat. Practices that really, for me, really help me interact more with kindness and in my heart, how that interacts with the rest of the world. I see self-compassion, active self-compassion, allowing myself to be human. Mindful observation of patterns and compassion for self and others. Using breath as an anchor, just knowing breath is always there. So we have these practices with us all of the time, not just here when we show up to East Bay Meditation Center, but throughout our lives. And this is a good time of year to remember that and take it with us. Gratitude, turning our attention towards what we appreciate, what we can feel grateful for. So yeah, if more stuff comes up, continue to put it in the chat. And I think Melvin and I can just share a little bit about some of the practices, teachings, concepts that are getting us through, and maybe riff a little bit off of some of what we're hearing from you as well. I appreciate these couple more that have landed in here as well. Queer friendships, yes. Appreciating those as well as like naming unpleasant, pleasant, and neutral, remembering that whole range of experience feels really supportive to me. And remembering, planning, and commenting. It's also here. As Melvin and I were prepping for this talk, Melvin introduced me to the fact that our mutual crush, Tori Amos, has a new album out. You got a little snippet of that if you were here just as we were starting around 7. and that album is called Ocean to Ocean, which is part of what's influencing our Dharma talk name of Oceans of Change. And so I've been listening to that album maybe nonstop since Melvin turned me on to it last week. One of the songs on the album is called Swim to New York State. And there's this particular line, or several lines on that song, where she's just like, I don't know if you know Tori at all. I'm not going to try to tell you what the song is about, because you'll probably just have to listen to it 100 times and you might still not know what it's about. But I'm going to tell you this line in the song that speaks to me in a certain way. And so she's just singing like, and you gave, 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 and then you still gave. And every time I hear her sing that line, I'm just like, oof, I know that. I'm familiar with that. That is my style. And there's a way like that can be, Melvin and I were talking about this a little bit, and there's a way that that style of like giving, you know, can be beneficial. Like there's this concept in Buddhism that this identity within Buddhism of the Bodhisattva, who is this being who cares so much about the enlightenment of all beings in this world, in which the Bodhisattva says, I will not be enlightened, I will not be fully enlightened until all beings are. And that's just like such a giving identity. It's like, I will just give and give and give and give. And yet at the same time, it's really important to like, I have learned in my style of giving, that it's really important to like not burn out. And I've really appreciated Musha Makeda, who's a teacher here at EBMC, has this vow to not burn out, which I feel like she often places next to the Bodhisattva vow, the Bodhisattva principles. And it's really been, I feel like I've placed it alongside this other teaching that I've been learning over the past couple months around centered accountability, which is a little outside of Buddhist practice, but I found really helpful from this person, Daria, who's teaching a course that I found on Instagram. And Daria talks a lot about how we often, when we talk about accountability in this world and like how we're expecting ourselves to show up, we often talk a lot about under accountability, how people aren't showing up enough and we need to be giving more. And so that's kind of just being a little like steps back a little bit too much. But there's also a role, which is this like over giving role, in which I might be in an over accountability role, where I might be leaned in a little bit too much. And so I'm often at this point trying to find this more centered accountability role, where I'm not out of engagement, but not so engaged that I'm gonna burn out and be overwhelmed. Trying to really find that centered accountability. So that's been one of my attempts to really explore this, this practice of really like being engaged, really caring about the liberation of all beings, but at the same time, like not being so overwhelmed that I'm just gonna like give and give and give and give and still give. To a point where maybe I just fall into the ocean. So I'm curious, Melvin, if you have any thoughts on Dharma concepts, practices, something that's getting you through this season, or a Tori song that you have to tell me about.
Well, right where you were doing the over accountability and accountability, that was like the ocean waves to me, and
Mhm.
like and how like not to drown in the ocean, and how not to or notice when we get flooded, right, with all the stressors of our times, and so the teaching for me it, so I'm so happy we're talking about the Tori Amos album. And there's a song, I think it's like, I just looked up the lyrics today, even though I've been listening to it for the last, since it came out like 3 weeks ago. It's called How Glass is Made. And, and the first lyrics are like, I put questions into a jar. And one of the questions is, are you still crying? Or are you crying still? Are you crying still? And that just it's speaking to my heart, like crying, like all the like, and that's like the bodhisattva thing you're talking about, Don, like hearing all the cries of the world or more, yeah, and so do you know how glass is made? And then a few lines down, do you know how glass can break? And and the glass is made, and how glass breaks. The glass breaking is like to me the impermanence and the changing of things, and I almost looked up like how glass is made, and I think I remember learning it in like biology or something, or chemistry or something, physical science, I think it was that class. And how it is the buffeting of the grains of salt or something, I think, the sand, and it creates glass. Um, and then it led me to look up the teaching of dependent origination, which is like this lofty kind of concept in Buddhism, in my opinion, and just describing or trying to describe the indescribable of uh, how the world is so complex. To think of how glass is made, and like the just like we have scientific kind of explanations, but how um, and that's why I brought in the five element practice in the meditation. It's like taking refuge and solace, and like that I do practice, and a lot of my practice has been um, like trying to stay in my body and trying to mindfully move my body, including like um, getting out of bed when there's like a flooding of anxiety and a flooding of despair and a flooding of traumatic memories. And um, that was this morning. And sort of moving, and there's another line on the on this album that's Tori says like be like water, and she borrowed that from Bruce Lee, and so that's been another thing of like being like water and as one of these elements, and just and really getting out of my sort of hyper self orientation and connecting to the um, like I said, there's a thinker that Don, you know well, Bayo Kamalafe. He says the more than human. So like connecting, just to try to create space for like all that is, and as you were saying, Don, like that the equanimity, that sort of riding the waves and being somewhere in the middle, and not like the perfect middle or not the perfect balance, because that doesn't exist, but just like being like water and trying to just open to not wanting to like try to figure it all out, and and so reading that dependent origination and all there's like 12 stages and these sort of, and how it really, how it ends, these last stages, as I understand them, is like it is coming back to the body, noticing our senses and noticing the accumulations of our experiences, and knowing that most of them aren't so volitional, that we didn't, that a lot of it is conditioned on the experiences, that a lot of them that we didn't really have control over, and that we don't have so much control over now. Okay, did I just go deep sea, like all the way out, out to sea? Bring me back.
No, it makes so much sense to me. I really, just even the title of how glass is made makes me think about like, I just keep picturing myself made of glass as such a fragile being. Like how my heart feels like glass sometimes when I feel so tenderhearted. And when I feel that way, it's because of the past experience, my past experiences. It's the past causes and conditions, as the Buddhists would say, that have led up to creating a fragile heart of glass. And so there's an opportunity when I can slow it down, which I feel like is what my experience of the 12 steps of dependent origination help like slow down the process of how that fragility happens, where it's like not just like, oh, there's a fragile glass of heart or a fragile heart of glass. That's just how the heart is. Too bad. It's actually like, no, it was made, there was like a process that happened to make it that way, and we can actually unpack it. We can actually see the point of contact and like see what happened in the senses and like see the like chain of events that happened that created the glass. We could actually follow the chain of events, and then we can like through that seeing, and for me, like when I'm actually able to see the chain of events, there's a way that like a certain kind of healing can happen that's like so transformational, so that my heart doesn't like have to just be glass all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, so someone you put in the chat, the unpleasant Vedana, that's for me has been like just acknowledging the unpleasant has been, and that as our heart breaks, it's not that we're doing something wrong or that we're practicing in the wrong way, and that it is possible to see the the cause and effect, but also it's where I get stuck a lot too is like trying. There's a saying in like sociology of like causation doesn't necessarily imply a correlation, doesn't imply causation, like that we can draw a straight line, and usually it's like when I'm drawing a straight line, and we all know straight is like I can't believe I even said the word. And that
We're an Alphabet Sangha, Melvin.
that that it generally leads to like blaming myself, or as Rachel said in the beginning, that agreement around blaming ourselves, refraining or from blaming ourselves, others, generally when it's like we want that shortcut or an easy line to draw, it generally leads to that. And I appreciate this wisdom teachings is that we get to see this more nuance or complexity, and yeah, and hold it, in the ocean of the universe.
I felt curious. You asked me earlier today if we wanted to talk about our like end of year New Year's rituals, and I was like, but I feel like you had a good one to share.
Did I? I think you did around around letting go of. Um, I think these times are calling
Yeah.
for really what I come back to. You brought up Mushim. She credits me for saying like that creativity is the antidote to trauma,
Mhm.
and I
Good.
nothing new under the sun, but the like how can we continue to be creative, and ritual feels sort of like not creative. It might feel like rote or something, and but yeah, I guess I for the calendar change, the Gregorian calendar from 2021 to 22. And every year for the last, I don't know how many years, going to the ocean and writing like intentions and writing like the accomplishments I made, and I mean, so, and the first accomplishment I know today was like I got out of bed, and and I stayed in bed actually. The first I stayed in bed, that was an accomplishment. I just got out of bed. And so the and then just kind of taking stock. I think when you were talking earlier, Donna, was kind of the service thing around doing too much and wanting to getting caught up in the capitalist sort of more is better, and then but also holding the other side of it of that there is a lot of suffering and or that if we're not if we are quote unquote just tending to our suffering that we're not doing enough. um, and I think we were in our exchanges earlier today kind of um, alluding to that a bit of like it's not like doing it's like oh just do this, then you'll be a better human being, but like you know around ritual like
Mhm.
but how can it be a way to um, take stock or appreciate ourselves,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, yeah.
Yeah, I
Mm.
definitely I felt a little almost like frozen when you asked the question of, oh, do you have like rituals that would be fun to share about around the change in year? Because I don't have anything formal that happens annually, and I can almost head into a bit of a shame spiral, feeling that I've like fucked something up and I'm doing it wrong because I don't have something that's like a formal ritual. So it's like helpful almost to name that so I can just be like, no, like it's actually useful, I think, for me in some way to I don't have like a specific ritual, but I am actually pretty committed to engaging with this time of year as a ritual time. But every year there's something, it's usually something different that makes sense as the thing to do. And so when I was thinking about then where I was like, what do I even mean by ritual time? Like it just feels like a phrase. And so I was like, I think I mean, usually I'm like trying to connect to one or more ancestral traditions with some kind of curiosity and intention. Um, I'm usually trying to do something in community for me. And if I'm trying to do something by myself, it's usually then has some kind of like objects or process or something that helps connect it to some kind of lineage. So I feel like that's my way of um, still feeling connected to ritual at this time, but also feeling really flexible about it not being the same thing year to year. So some of the examples, like a few years ago, my partner was really like, we're both white and we were really interested in kind of my partner was really interested in relearning some Nordic traditions from their ancestry. And so we did like a Yule celebration as a way to kind of get out of Christian traditions and repair some ancestral wounds of some of the Nordic traditions just really being erased by Christianity. It was really helpful to do that year, but it wasn't necessarily something that stuck as like, this is the thing that we're doing every year now. But there are parts of that tradition that are still relevant and important. Last year, I was like super attuned to the astrology that was happening, the Jupiter Saturn conjunction. That was like the thing this time of year. And so I was making art for my altar at home, and kind of connecting with that lineage and tradition and learning more about that. Often for me, it's like, what do I have some space to learn more about? And this year there's some talk amongst friends that we're going to get to know the Roman tradition of Saturnalia, which there's like a lot of gender bending, like swapping clothes, swapping roles. So I'm just getting to know about it. So I don't have the whole history, but again, so there's just kind of space to like learn, reconnect. But I'm kind of not there yet to be like, this is the new tradition and the new ritual that is in place. And so it's helpful to just kind of value this learning that I'm in, while also really like, I don't know, in like valuing it. I don't want to value it more though than like people who have a more steady ritual practice. You know, we're just coming out of Hanukkah, which is, I think for people for whom that's a tradition that you can connect with, is like super beautiful and important. Musha posted that tomorrow's the day to celebrate the Buddha's enlightenment in Japanese Zen traditions. So this is, you know, definitely a month of a lot of common ritual practice that we can tap into. So I'm really trying to like figure out where it works for me and like be able to tap into that, and then like make some stuff up where I'm learning and like really using like queerness as a way to build community here.
It's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, Bodhi Day is tomorrow. And for me, it's like remembering our capacity to um, in, to be enlightened. So tomorrow, my commitment is to notice the moments of enlightenment, because I really feel it's like drop by drop. It's kind of, you know, and it's already there, you know. Yeah, that's beautiful, Don. Yeah, yeah, there's solstice coming up too. Yeah, and this, and I'll be frank and real. I always, it's double edged for me. I kind of like feel like I want more rest and I want more darkness, you know. And it's like the light, it's already coming back, but then also just feeling the exhaustion and the wanting to rest and the grief and the depression and so also not wanting the sun to melt some of that away, too. And so just conflicted a little bit about that. But yeah, and to me it feels, um, yeah, there's the divine abodes, you know, many of you know, the loving kindness and compassion and and thank you, Jasmine. Yeah, Kwanzaa, and yeah, um, and the the moon is represented like with equanimity, and metta is like the sun at noon, like shining on everything, and And then compassion is like the sun setting, and mudita, the joy, is as the sun comes up in the morning. And so I think that's a ritual I want to engage in, that I engage in. I have been just this last year, when I first heard this teaching in the beginning of the year for the first time, and so kind of honoring the, again, coming back to this humility of like the complexity of nature, and yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, so someone mentioned Kwanzaa, and are there other rituals that sound interesting to folks that you want to drop in the chat? You riffing off maybe something Don or I said, or something you might want to set an intention toward.
Hmm. Yeah, so the ritual of New Year's Eve at East Bay Meditation Center was definitely a big occasion for many years. I think I was there at least once.
Me too. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. I think I feel curious, like in connecting with the elements, water, fire, earth, air. I mean, this is a core practice within the Buddha's four foundations of mindfulness. This is a core practice of connecting with the body. And so it's part of, for me, like anytime I'm connecting through this practice of the elements, I think it's part of where, as you were sharing I was not familiar with this, like putting the divine abodes through the process of the sun is very beautiful. But yeah, anytime I'm like processing through the elements, I feel like I'm processing through my body on some level. It's almost like it's like my body, but the earth body, but those are just like different, those are the same, but on different scales.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just kind of curious if that makes sense to you, or if you think about it a different way.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, as you were saying, and I just reminded of how um, vulnerable and tender and difficult it is to honor um, our what's labeled as queer bodies, and how many of us have reclaimed that term, and so as you were talking, I just I connected to grief around um, being lied to and told that my body isn't amazing as it is, and connected to something, part of something bigger, and part of the miracle that is our existence. And so as you said, that's what and how again, vulnerable, tender it is to connect. And so right away I went to my left foot and gripping my toes on the chair, and I just because when we start to talk about the body, I think for a lot of us, it can be too much, and we want to disconnect, and and so and yet this is how we experience the world, and as queer folks, like really we I think remind folks of the bullshit of the binary, right? I mean, and so yeah.
Yeah, it makes me wonder. Yeah, I hear you on that grief, and I am also seeing in the chat the like sense of belonging that is touched into when we can feel how our body is made up of the elements of the earth. That like our bones are earth, and our the air fills our lungs and makes goes to all our cells to make our life possible. And yeah, Sarah's saying our blood is chemically similar to seawater, like it's the ocean is right inside of us. Right here. And fire is like digesting our food in our bellies. I have not had dinner yet, so it's not digesting it in my belly, but it will be soon.
Yeah, and then we're more than that too. Like we can't even, like words don't do it justice either. Like, and and so this first foundation, just to kind of answer the question, Don, is like, this is the way we experience enlightenment, the world, the joys and the woes, and how radical it is to do this. And you all did this by showing up tonight and paying such. I just feel the attention, your kind attention with Don and me witnessing us. Continuing our the spiritual friendship path, and some of you mentioned in the chat earlier, like it is the our the chosen or logical family and spiritual friends. Those are essential, and that we as alphabet folks have this is how we get through, so and so I'm wishing that for all of us, that we connect to human and more than human friends, and connections, to remind us of our divinity is the word that's coming up to me. And elemental change, that's another term that's coming up, that it just trips me out, the coming together on Zoom, that we've that's definitely an accomplishment, because just seeing your familiar names, and we haven't even met in person, and and hands, waving hands, and that we've been able to create elemental change. I think for good. Yeah. Um, yeah. So, Don, do you wanna take us out? Or?
Sure, I can do that. Well, thank you for witnessing some queer friendship here and being part of this room of queer friendship, queer spiritual friendship. Just letting whatever has been nourishing here for you, just letting that settle a little bit more deeply into your bones, into your ocean, your blood ocean. That's just here, right here in your body. If anything wasn't quite right, maybe just letting that move on along. Letting the wisdom that's here tonight be something that can keep nourishing you. In the season. Maybe you can notice and feel how when this wisdom nourishes you, this wisdom of practice, this wisdom of teaching, just notice how it already starts to create a certain kind of elemental change that has a benefit that ripples out to others in your life. Whether that's people you're close with, someone you interact with at the grocery store that you have just a little bit more compassion towards, perhaps in other dimensions that are unseen, unknown, just letting that wisdom ripple out. Perhaps with a benefit towards all beings. With deep gratitude, friends.
Feel free to unmute if you want to say bye, and yeah, thank you for your practice.